Hi, this is Ivan Omara. I decided to make a video in my bathroom. I'm going to talk more about more aspiring advice, more advice for aspiring authors in the fantasy author world, obviously. I'll make maybe a 20-25 minute video. So I made 2 videos for you guys, but this is a shorter video. I'm making a video in my bathroom. Obviously, thought it'd be cool to make the video in a different environment. So my advice to all you aspiring fantasy authors on Fantasy Writers Reddit and other people around the world, obviously, my advice is try to be as simple as you can and stay away from big info dumps for like more than a page and a half. Because if you info dump for more than a page and a half, you could bore the reader, and the readers are going to DNF your book. Take the advice from me, man. Half these English words that all these smart English guys use on fantasy writing Reddit, obviously, I don't even know what half those words mean. Yet my book is more simple and yet some more entertaining read when you read it. Samsara. It's some more entertaining read when you read it. And so my advice to all you aspiring fantasy authors out there, stay away from info dumping too much. There's nothing wrong with info dumping, but don't do it for any more than maybe a page and a half, and just get to the point with the characters and the story art form. Don't focus on info dumps, otherwise you're going to bore the reader when they read your fantasy novel, your fantasy manuscript. Especially if you're traditionally publishing, if you info dump too much and you don't put conflict and climaxes in your chapters, chances are you're going to get loads of rejections from the literary agents. And you're going to have a tougher time getting the agents to be interested in your fantasy book manuscript. Stay away from info dumps and stop trying to be smart with your English words. Just be simple like me. Take the advice from me, guys. Listen up. And just be simple. Just be a simple storyteller. Stop trying to be a smart storyteller with your English words. Just be simple. And I don't understand why a lot of these aspiring fantasy authors on Fantasy Writers Reddit, they don't listen to me. They don't get it. I read stuff on Fantasy Writers Reddit, and I always notice the same pattern. They're always trying to be smart and with their English literature, and they think they're telling a good story. Just stop thinking about them being impressed by how good you are as an English writer. It's about how good you are as a storyteller. There's a difference between writing and storytelling. When you write a book, it is story art form. You're supposed to tell an amazing story. You're not supposed to write a good essay. Because if you write really good English, but your story is shit, it's garbage, then obviously you didn't do your job. Yes, you wrote, it's beautifully written, but you bored the reader and you didn't tell an entertaining story. The reader is reading your manuscript or your book, and they're looking for an entertaining read, an entertaining story read. They're not looking for an amazingly written English writing. They're looking for story form, story art form. They're looking for an amazing story that's being told. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. I'm only going to talk maybe 20 minutes, guys. I'm done. See what I'm saying? Yeah. Stay away from info dumps, all you aspiring fantasy authors. And just be simple and write a good story. Stop trying to wow the reader with your English words. Nobody cares how good your English is when they read a book, read your manuscript. They care how good your story is. And a lot of these writers on Fantasy Writing Reddit, they don't get it. They keep trying. I read their stuff and I keep seeing all these big English words. They think they're telling a good story by writing good English when they're not. You're gonna bore the reader if you do that, man. Just be simple and stop info dumping too much. Get to the point with the story and the characters. And you'll write a more entertaining novel. Yeah, but Ivan, how do you write entertaining chapters in in entertaining chapters. Try to have character conflict with your antagonists or your protagonists, your supporting characters. It doesn't hurt to throw in a big climax in each of your chapters, or leave your chapters with a big cliffhanger to keep the reader guessing and during the page and the more interested obviously. It doesn't hurt to throw in hints to and foreshadowing hints in each of your chapters of what could perhaps happen next. Samsara. It doesn't hurt to do that. But if you're not an architectural writer, then the foreshadowing hints, or you're not that creative, then you don't have to put in foreshadowing hints. But it doesn't hurt to have some big character conflict in each of your chapters, or throw in a big climax that happens in each of your chapters. Obviously, that way you keep the reader engaged and more hooked when they read your chapters, and then you'll have a more entertaining novel. Samsara. Yeah. Because your book doesn't have to be the best book ever written. All you aspiring fantasy authors or fantasy writers, right? It just has to be good enough to have a fan base and have them be more engaged in your brand, in your novel. If you self-publish or if you traditionally publish, your book just has to be good enough for the editors to fix up your novel. It doesn't have to be the best story ever told, like me, right? Don't hang on, but it just has to be good enough for the editors and the agents to be interested, and hopefully they get you a book publishing deal. And the editors can fix up your novel well enough that way you wrote a pretty good novel. Got some saying? I was just saying, yeah. That's my point. Some saying? Almost done. I'll talk for 13 minutes, I'm done. It's only going to be a 20-minute video. And after this, I'm going to go get my slices at Bob's. I want you to get pizza. I'm craving Bob's slices after this. I'll enjoy showing you guys. This is a short video, only a 20-minute video. Some sorry. Ivan, do you recommend we brainstorm our chapters? Yes. It doesn't hurt to brainstorm a little bit your chapters. That way you have a foundation for each of your chapters. But it just depends how creative you are, what kind of style writer you are. If you're a gardener, you don't necessarily need to brainstorm. But when you start out the process of your fantasy manuscript, you obviously have to brainstorm some of your characters and your idea for your world and all that stuff. So you have a foundation, like I did for saying this. But for your chapters, you don't have to brainstorm it if you're a gardener. But I recommend it doesn't hurt to take a little bit of notes for each of your chapters. That way you have a foundation when you're writing your chapters for your novel. From Sarah. Yeah. But I recommend it doesn't hurt to brainstorm each of your chapters for your fantasy novel. From Sarah. Doesn't hurt to do that. So you're saying a lot of these fantasy writers on aspiring fantasy writers on fantasy writing Reddit, a lot of the stuff you read there is garbage. Yeah, a lot of the stuff I read on fantasy writing Reddit is garbage. Most of the stuff I read there is not great stuff. Beautifully written literature, a lot of their stuff, but the story, in terms of the story, it's garbage. They don't know how to keep the story pacing. I don't mean to be a dick, I don't mean to be an asshole. Like, a lot of those guys, they don't know how to tell a good fantasy story. They know how to write beautiful English literature even better than me, but they don't know how to keep the story pacing and tell an interesting story, because a lot of these guys, they don't understand. They think they're telling a good story by writing beautiful English. Just get that out of your mind process and just be simple and tell a good story. Stop trying to wow the reader with your English, big words. Nobody cares how good your English is. They care how good your story is. Listen up, guys. Stop doing that, man. You're gonna bore the reader and confuse the reader. Focus on the pacing of the story and your characters. Stop trying to focus on how good your English writing is. They use all these big words when they describe the character's thoughts or actions. I'm just like, oh my god. Even though it's beautifully written, it's boring. The story's not going anywhere. There's plot holes, and they info dump with descriptions for like 5-6 pages with their big English words, and it's boring. And if you do that, you're gonna bore the reader. They're gonna think every book. I'm telling you right now, man. I know what I'm talking about. Sarah, I know what I'm talking about. Yeah, almost done here, guys. Talk for another maybe 9 minutes. I'm done. I'm sweating. Yeah, but Ivan, J.R.R. Tolkien, he influenced a lot. Yeah, but to be fair, J.R.R. Tolkien wrote Lord of the Rings in a different generation. He was born in a different generation. The way books were written back then are a little bit different than the way they're written now. As if J.R.R. Tolkien wrote his book now, well, his editor would cut out a lot of stuff in his book nowadays, right? But J.R.R. Tolkien's the exception. Even though J.R.R. Tolkien has a lot of info dumping, he wrote his book as a masterpiece. There's exceptions, obviously, but you guys are not J.R.R. Tolkien, right? And you're not me, but I'm giving you my advice. Stay away from info dumps and stop trying to be smart with your big English words. Just be simple and tell a good story. Listen, be simple and tell a good story, and stop trying to wow the reader with your big English words. Nobody cares how good your English is. They care how good your story is, for crying out loud. Listen to me, guys. I know what I'm talking about, man. Stop trying to wow the reader with your big English words. Nobody cares how good your English writing is. They care how good your story form is. There's a difference between great storytelling and great writing. You're not writing an essay for your English class. You're writing a story. But these guys think on Fantasy Writing Reddit that they're telling a great story by trying to wow you with their knowledge of English. Forget about that and just focus on wowing them with your story form. Samsara? It's common sense, guys. And I know what I'm talking about. I wrote a masterpiece. I know what I'm talking about, Samsara. Yeah. I know what I'm talking about, guys. I know what I'm talking about. Samsara. This is a short video, guys. I'll talk for maybe another 7 minutes. I'm done. A 20-minute video. And when I showed you they're unique, you notice how my writing is also simple there too. I don't use all these big words, and yet it's very entertaining when you read it. Yeah, because I'm a simple storyteller, but I always focus on what's going on with the characters in the story, less on how good my writing, my English is. As I'm not that great of an English writer, I don't even know half those big words that all these guys use in their manuscripts, but I know how to tell a good story. It's about entertaining the reader with your story, less on entertaining them with your English. But because these guys don't get it, they think they're telling a good story by wowing them with their beautiful English, because they don't get it. No, wow them with your story, not your English. I'm talking to you fantasy writing Reddit guys who are aspiring fantasy authors. Listen up. Nobody cares how good your English is. They care how good your story is. Get that through your head, guys. Am I married? Huh? Get that through your head. Yeah. Get that through your head, huh? Ivan, you're a fucking asshole. You're a dick. Like you're shitting on all our manuscripts. Well, I don't mean to be an asshole, but sometimes giving harsh advice is the best advice I can give you, right? Because the truth is, most of the stuff I read on Fantasy Writing Reddit is garbage and trash. It's not great stuff, man. Some stuff there is pretty good. There's some guys there who are pretty good, but most of the stuff I read there is garbage. Plot holes, boring, beautifully written English, but the story's all over the place. The world building feels fake. You want to write fantasy, you got to make your world building for World 2, right? They describe all this stuff, and the world building doesn't really feel real. It feels fake. It doesn't feel like a real world. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Obviously. Because a lot of those guys, they don't get it. They think they're telling an amazing fantasy story by writing great English, when in reality, they're not really telling a great story. They're telling a garbage story. It's beautifully written, even more beautifully written than my book. By beautifully written, I mean the English literature, but the story is not as beautifully written. The story is garbage, and it's a mess, and it's not great. And a lot of those guys don't get it. I don't need to be an asshole, man. A lot of you guys on fantasy writing Reddit, you don't get it, man. Stop trying to wow the reader with your amazing English. Wow them with your story form, your story art form. Not the what, not the English literature. You're not writing an essay, you're writing a story. See, if you're writing an essay, that's a different story. The better your English is, the better grade you'll get. But for a story, it's about the story art form. It's not about the English. It's about the story art form. Your characters, your world building, the pacing of your story, the conflicts, the protagonist, the antagonist. It's all about that. See what I'm saying? Yeah. It's all about that. Yeah. Excuse the noise, the fan is on. So you guys are going to hear the noise of the fan, but you can still hear me very well, right? I thought it'd be cool to make a video in a different environment in my bathroom. Yeah, my downstairs bathroom, right? Yeah. Yeah. Ivan, should we traditionally publish or self-publish? It just depends on your situation, your goals, your needs. If you want to be famous and have a more professional book and have your book be at bookstores, then traditional publishing is a better bet for you. If you want to control the writing of your novel and make more money, but be more simple, not as famous, and self-publishing is a better option for you. It just depends on your goals and your needs. You want to be famous, traditional publishing is a better path for you, and you want your book at bookstores and have all these raving reviews, then traditional publishing is a better option for you. I'm just saying, for traditional publishing, you lose the controlling right of your novel, and you're the house's puppet, and they pay you the peanuts, and they take all the money, and they control your book, and they can change things in your book if you want. Whereas self-publishing, the book is yours. It'll cost you more money to get it edited and design your cover and all that stuff. But once you get that over with, the book is 100% your rights. And you make way more money, but you're not going to be as famous. You might get YouTube interviews here and there, but you're not going to get like the public eye fame like George R. Martin and J.K. Rowling and Brandon Sanderson. You guys know what I'm saying? So it just depends what are your goals, what are your needs, your situation. There's context, obviously. Both paths are good. It just depends on your goals and your situation. If you want to be richer, self-publishing is better for you, but you're going to be more simple. You're not going to be as famous. You want to be more famous, very famous, have all these raving reviews online and everything, but make less money, then traditional publishing is a better option for you. So, Sarah? Yeah. So I hope you guys learned from my advice. I thought it'd be cool to make a quick 20-minute video. Stay tuned for my video after my daunting shift at Coco 40 tomorrow. I hope you guys enjoyed this show. I'm going to upload this video and I'm going to listen to some music, and I'm going to go get my slices at Bob's. I'm going to enjoy the show with you guys with my leftover beer, eat my pizza, and then after that I'm going to go to bed. It's Ivan Omara. I'm signing out. Peace. Hope you guys enjoy this show. Peace out, guys. I talked for 19, almost 20 minutes, right? Peace, guys. Don't hate them, man. Hope you guys enjoy this show. I'm Ivan Omara. Say this.